Hello, my friend. How are you today? This video is going to be rather personal. It's as personal as it will ever get about my personal story. And so for those who know me, you may want to stick around till the end to understand, a lot of people have wondered what really happened in Joe's life. And here's your chance to get to know everything, bared, nothing held back, all right? So let's move on. One of the most intriguing, interesting, awe-inspiring stories, if I may use the word, in Bible is that of Job. Now, most of you know that Job was, a very devout, religious person. He lived a God-loving, God-fearing life. And he was also literally the richest. He used to be known as the richest man of the East. All right, he was a very, very, very rich man. And it appears that when God and Satan have a conversation now and then, God sort of likes to tickle Satan. All right. So God turns to Satan and tells him, "Hey, look at my subject Job over there. He is so religious. He's always worshiping and praising me. He's so devout." Actually, he used the word, he's so upright, right? Job is a very upright person in my presence. He sort of gloats. He sort of takes pride in that. And you know what the Satan does? The Satan literally turns back at God and challenges him. He says, "Well, why not? Pourquoi pas? Kyun nahi? Why wouldn't he worship you? Because you've given him literally everything that a man could wish for. And he challenges him. He says, you give me the power to destroy everything that he has. And then let us see if he is still going to worship you, right? And God being God says, well, no problems, Satan. Go ahead. I have a condition that you should not, take away his life. Other than that, you can do anything you want, his property, his belongings, whatever you want, you destroy, right? And long story short, which we'll go into later in depth, Job loses everything in a very, very short span of time. But Job does not lose his faith. He does not sin. He does not curse God. He does not question God. He continues to praise and worship God. Now, in almost all our lives, we also face these challenging moments, at some time or the other, in some form or the other. And today I'm going to share my personal story about what I went through and the lessons I learned from the life of Job. Now, I lost my father when I was 6.5 years old. And, we are a family of 5 children. I'm the youngest. And, our mother had to go through a lot of difficulty bringing us up with a meager, pension that she used to get those days. As a matter of fact, we could be raised only with the help of Catholic priests, more specifically the Capuchins and the nuns who ran schools, and so on. Well, however, around my age of 22, I started working, and in a span of 6.5 years, all right, now this 6.5 years in my life is a very interesting span of time, all right. You're going to be hearing it repeated throughout this video. It's sort of interesting, I would say, and also intriguing, yeah. So in a period of 6.5 years' time, I had risen pretty well in my career. I was earning quite well for those days. I already had a fully paid 2-storied house, a beautiful villa. I had a car already fully paid, no loans, no mortgages, no liabilities. I had a couple of motorcycles, and I was married to a lovely, wife by then. And we also had a lovely, amazing, beautiful, adorable son. Yeah. Now, we all, we are a family that has been always very religious, very devout, and we were living our life in a very Christian way. And it looks like at this moment, God decided to pick on me, and he called Satan and said, "Hey, look at my boy over there, yeah, Joe. Now that's a good Catholic, maybe. Okay, I'm just assuming. Maybe I'm being a bit more, but however, let's take it as that. He said, look, he's living the way I appreciate, so to say. He does everything. He's an upright guy in my eyes. He's doing everything that the Bible teaches him, the Catechism teaches him, the priests teach him, and so on." And what would the Satan say? He won't be let down, right? So he says, "Why not, God? Why not? You have given him a good life now. You've given him a good life, yeah? So of course he's being righteous, he's being good to you, he's being upright, he's being faithful to you, he's worshiping you, he's praising you, because you have given him everything. Allow me to destroy what he has, yeah?" And God says, "Okay, go ahead, yeah?" So around this time, when I was roughly 29 years old, and I had a very comfortable job, in a pretty large quasi-government company, so to say, earning a fantastic salary, something enters my mind that I should suddenly, and unceremoniously drop my job, resign from my job, and start a business. Yeah. Now, you might raise your eyebrows and say, "So what's wrong with having a business, right? What's wrong with desiring for more?" Yeah, which is basically the purpose why I would leave my job and start a business, right? These are very valid questions, right? But I will address these as we move along, right? So I decided to leave my job, quit my job, resign my job, and start a business, all right? Again, this business, somehow I managed to run it rather successfully for the first few years. I would say something, that managed to pull me more and more into it, yeah? I ran it for around three odd years. And by that time, a lot of events happened in my life, with a couple of people whom I trusted, put in the money, whatever it is. At the end of the day, reasons are excuses in business. So reasons don't matter. But the fact of the matter remains that, long story short, I lost my money, right? I failed in the business. I lost my money, all right? Now, I had a couple of options here, right? I could have just gone back to another job, which was a pretty simple thing to do, or I had enough support at that time locally with the bankers and very many other people from the elite society, so to say, with my connections that I had in those days, and I could easily recreate what I had lost. But something dragged me to leave my home country and go to a foreign country. Believe me, these are all not planned. They just happen, all right? They just happen. So I leave for, the foreign country. After all, the grass is always greener on the other side. And take up a job there, however, what I had heard would be my prospect was not to be, right? I went through a lot of difficulties, starting from the days when I, got into a company that would not pay me any salary at all for about 6-7 months, to moving on to a company which did indeed start paying me reasonably well, but literally where I was living the life of a slave. It was a proprietorship firm. And in the country where I was, once you're in a job, you surrender your passport, all right? So you can't just walk away from the job or even leave the country and go away. So much so that when my daughter was born, my second child was born back in my home country, my boss did not allow me to take sufficient leave to go and be with my wife, for the delivery of the child, even at that moment. And that is why I say, it was the life of a slave, yeah? I could not even decide when I wanted to be with my wife and children, right? But nevertheless, the salary was okay, but, over a period of time, I felt it pretty suffocating. When I decided to resign, I became the bad boy of the company. And again, the salary went to zero, right? No salary at all, okay, for quite a few months, till the good day came, when the gentleman decided to let me go back. All right. So, by the way, this again, from the time I went to that country till the time I could finally resign from the second company was a period of 6.5 years for some reason. Yeah. Anyway, because I did not get my salary for the last, 4 or 5 months since the date I declared that I would like to resign and leave his company, I was literally broke. And in that country, they have something called as the end of service benefits, all right, which sort of is a percentage of, the salary you received or based on the number of months or years that you worked in that company. Now, laws of the land, if you wish to call it, but I was given nil, a zero amount. I was given absolutely nothing. I was spent back penniless. So much so that after having spent 6.5 years in a foreign country where basically somebody goes to earn more than they can in their hometown, right? I was coming back to my home country without even enough money to buy chocolates for my little children. Yeah, that's not a very comforting thought even to think back here. Right. So anyway, the good thing is that because the boss delayed my exit by 4 or 5 months, another company out of the blue, right? Out of the blue, I had not applied for the job or whatever. They heard about me from one of my clients, so to say, and contacted me and offered me a job, right? And this was a start of a good time for me, right? So again, I went back and joined that company with a very, very good salary. And, as it was going on somewhere around that time, another company, the executives, very senior executives of whom knew me from my earlier days in India, they invited me to join that company again, obviously with a much higher job ranking and a much higher salary and benefits, and things were going on fine. Somewhere around this time, something happened, and I underwent what is known as a faith crisis, all right? What it is, in a nutshell, is a stage where you lose your faith in God, all right? You say there's no God, all right? I'll go through the details of what happened really, probably in a different video. But for the sake of this, let's understand that, I went through that in life as well. Remember that this was a time when things were going upswing for me, right? It was not a challenging time for me. Gone were the bad days. I was now in a good job, earning much, much more than the average person would. All right. And I was pretty happy. My family was with me, my wife and children. We were having a good time. However, something happened and, I had a faith crisis. Apparently, there are words on this which is also called as, a wilderness experience or a desert experience and so on, right? So bottom line is, yes, I did go through that experience. Now, as I was going through that somewhere around that time, this amazing company which had been literally chasing to employ me, because of my sort of expertise in that industry, something happened, after I spent exactly 2 years with them, and we had to part ways, all right? Now, by this time, I was literally sort of totally disinterested in the place, where we really did not have any control, and you could be tossed and thrown around, like an unwanted broom, so to say. So I told my wife, look, I'm going to give it 3 months, and if I don't find a very, very good job, which should balance the company, the nature of job, and the salary, we're going to go back home, okay? Now, obviously, this was not good news because the lifestyle there, the comforts we had, everything was fantastic. The family was happy. The children were studying there. Everything was going on smooth. And now came a sort of a problem on the way, yeah? Now, every time I say about a job loss, or later when I'm going to mention about the sicknesses, I want you to think, uh-oh, because every time this happens, it's going to drain away your finances, right? You can't go back to your house owner and tell him, I'm so sorry I lost my job, so would it be okay if I don't pay you my rent for the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, right? That's not going to happen, right? You can't go to your child's school and say, look, I lost my job, so can you please, excuse me from paying my school fees this month, right? So those expenses have to go on. Everything has to go on. You have to eat at the end of the day. Yeah. So yes, that started a big drain. And whatever savings you have, you start losing out on that, right? But nevertheless, I did get another job, right? A little bit lesser in salary than my earlier salary, which is not surprising because, a lot of people know to use or manipulate the situation and get the best deal out of, even employing people, right? So I did get that, okay? So we had another job and we started moving along as well. Now, somewhere on this time, what happened is also that I came back in faith, all right? I got back my faith in God and everything was honky-dory. How long do you think I was in that state of not believing? Exactly 6.5 years, all right. Now, here in this company where I mentioned, I did join at a salary that was lesser than my erstwhile job. However, this was a place where my growth was literally rhetoric, okay? It was exponential, it was huge, it was very fast and amazingly huge. Modesty apart, if I have to speak the truth, I think I was literally in the top 20%, of the high salary earners, I would dare say, in the entire country. Probably if I say among the expatriates, then probably it will become even the top 10%, right? But if you take the overall working community, I was probably in the top 20, which is massive, it's massive. However, things kept on going. I was very happy with the job. Salary was going on. My position, my respect in the company, everything was growing phenomenally, and everything was honky-dory. And it looks like Satan had its win with me a couple of times in the past when it made me lose my finances through the business. And again, when for whatever reason I lost my faith in God, Satan had its wins. And I like to think that just like each one of us has a guardian angel looking after ourselves, perhaps there's a junior Satan, the adversary, dedicated to each one of us, maybe, And because Satan had its win over me in its own ways in the past, it probably was happy, and it was probably sleeping in a corner, okay? And at this moment, God again decides to, poke him in the ribs and say, hey, you know what? Look at Joe, he has come back to me. He is my son again. He's so righteous. He's so good. He's upright. He's a good Catholic. And what does Satan say? Satan challenges God. Why not, God? You have given him everything. He has got such an amazing job. He is drawing such a huge salary. He's way above the average or even the high-paid guys. He's way above those guys, right? And he's got his family with him. Everything is going on good in his life. Why wouldn't he be truthful to you, And Satan says, do you allow me to, go and put some stumbling blocks in his life? God says, go ahead, And here is what happens. From nowhere, I was in a pretty good health, and suddenly I had a heart attack. All right. A pretty severe one. How much severe? I'll get into that later, okay? So I go, again, I hope you remember to say, aha, because that is a sign that I'm going to lose a lot of money, yeah? What happens is, first of all, you don't really have the best of the insurances always, right? So the hospital you want to go to, the disease you want to be treated for, the treatment that has to be given, all this need not necessarily be covered by your insurance, which in my case was true. It was not covered, right? So you have to spend from your pocket. And while you're recuperating, sitting at home, you lose on your salary, right? And all this while your expenses go on, yeah. So I'm losing out on whatever my earnings and savings, yeah. So yeah, so I had a heart attack, and sometime later, again the thought of business comes to my mind. Now remember, I was literally the highest paid guy in this multi-billion-dollar company with around 1,500 employees at that time. And I had a lot of power in the company, a phenomenal salary. And by the way, it was the start of the recession, right? People were worried about their jobs. They were holding it on with all the might they could. And suddenly the thought of business comes into my mind, and I resign again. I resign my job from that comfortable position and take the decision of starting a business. Now, a lot of whys and all, could be in the background, but it doesn't really matter, yeah? The fact remains that I threw off, I disregarded, I gave up a phenomenal job, all right, which God had blessed me with, and decided to start a business, right, for better earnings, right? So the question comes back again. So what's wrong with that? Okay, I mean, wanting to have a better life, wanting to have more earnings, wanting to give up on your job and starting a business. What's wrong with that? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, my friend. But what happens is, very oftentimes, your identity becomes that money, right? Your identity becomes that knowledge that you have, that skill set that you have, that education that you have, that job that you have, that position that you have, that things of that you call assets that you have, your luxury cars that you have. If your identity becomes your BMW or your Jaguar or the position that you hold or the salary that you have, yeah. If somebody has to say, hey, isn't that the guy who goes in that flashy Jaguar? And that's how you would like to be related to. If somebody has to look at you and say, I know that lady, she always comes with a kilo of gold literally every time she comes for Sunday Mass, right? Without that, you can't feel comfortable, right? When this becomes a situation, when your heart is in that treasure trove called the possession, when your mind is totally into it, right? When you're thinking, living, dreaming, sleeping, this kind of a possessions, where when you go to the church and Father says, lift up your hearts, you're suddenly like, oh, my heart? I left it in the bank locker. My heart? It's parked outside. My heart? It's with that beautiful girl who's not my wife, actually. You know what I mean? So when your heart becomes, something that is so worldly, right? When your thoughts, mind, your heart is all with this worldly possession. When you have a mindset that is so much commanded and controlled by the money, the power, the need for more and more money and positions, and everything good in life in this world, what happens is, knowingly or unknowingly, your ego bloats up, right? The ego. And whether you realize it or not, whether you do it knowingly or not, whether you do it, intentionally or not, you're actually slowly edging God out, right? Because he starts taking this later position in life, right? Whereas your possessions, the money, the power, your knowledge, your pride, the society, everything here, the house that you want to have or have, everything takes a priority over what you place for God. And that is what is the trouble with being misled into a situation that says, I want more, I want more, I want more. We often are used to seeing Satan, as the person with the thorn, with the fiery red eyes, and so on. But in real life, Satan plays with us with such beautiful, lovely, lovely things, right? A very, very beautiful girl who could so so sweetly come into a man's life, right? Or like I said, the need for money, which is more and more. I mean, I was already earning literally in the top 20% of the people over there. Why should I be drawn into needing more and more and more? Right? Again, the straightforward point of wanting more is not a problem. But what unconsciously happens is we give it so much importance, so much priority that we start edging God away. Probably something that you should remember, right? Ego, E-G-O, is also edging God out, right? So that is what happened in my life, right? And over a period of time, again, I faced my second heart attack. Well, by this time, I was running my business. By the way, how long do you think I worked in that company where, I was drawing such a fantastic salary? 6.5 years exactly, that magic term again, yeah? And yes, the business started, and honestly, modesty apart, the business took off. The business was quite a success. But only those who have run a business will understand it when I say that the business model was a huge success, but financially, I did not make money. It was a drain out, all right? This might sound strange to most people, but people in business know that there are companies which apparently do phenomenally well, but they are probably having a balance sheet which is on the negative of maybe $10 million, $100 million, whatever it is, right? So that was my story. The business model was a success, but I was spending more than I was earning. So I was constantly in a loss. And what happened is exactly after 6.5 years' time, there was a takeover, where not really much of a financial gain, but nevertheless, somebody took over the company and that went off. Where does it leave me? Negative in terms of finances, all right? But I'm not a guy who quits easy, all right? So looked around, and again, I found a nice job. Definitely a salary which was less than the last salary I'd drawn in that, phenomenal company I worked for earlier. Not my business, the one before that. But nevertheless, it was pretty okay. And, I put my heart and soul into it and spent 3.5 years. And a lot of that salary that was coming was also going towards paying back my personal loans, my liabilities, which I had taken in the 6.5 years of my business, where I was not really earning, but I was, spending on my business expenses as well as my personal family expenses. Yeah. So around this time, around 3.5 years after I set that company, made it profitable and so on and so forth, I came under the axe. You see a lot of people losing their jobs, right? Getting the pink slip, so to say. It can happen to everybody around you, but you live as if it's not going to happen to you ever, right? But anyway, the dark day came and it happened to me as well. I thought I was literally indispensable, so to say, for the company, but they proved it otherwise. Reasons apart, again, that's the thing that happened, and I lost my job. Again, like I said, I was spending, not only for my family expenses and so on, but also to set off my earlier loans and so on. So I didn't have much in hand by that time. And again, I wanted to stay back in the same country because my children were now grown. They were settled there, or getting settled there, so to say, in their jobs and so on. And me and my wife wanted to be with them. So we spent another 7 months trying to hold on there, all right, find another job, stuff like that. And in the bargain, we literally lost everything that we had, saved in those small ways, right? And here I was, after having worked for 34 grand years. Here I was, having achieved definitely a lot of success, a lot of high positions. All right, I did well, in short, right? But here I was at the end of my career, literally with nothing at all, nothing in my hand, all my money gone, right? What do you think happens? What do you think happens to somebody in this situation? Perhaps some of you have gone through the same situation in your own lives, right? It's pretty devastating, right? It's pretty devastating, to realize that you had all those glorious opportunities in your life, right? And today you stand with nothing in your hand, right? That's not a very easy thing to digest, right? And also, that is when a lot of your so-called friends, neighbors, relatives, people who have not achieved even probably 10% of what you've achieved, not saying from the point of ego, but really from the point of looking at it, in my perspective, they are all ready to give you advices, to tell you, how wrong you were, where you went wrong, how you should have managed things, and so on and so forth. You're already being eaten up about with the thought of what did I do, where did I go wrong, and so on. And here are other people coming and giving you their peace of mind, so to say. Definitely not a very easy time to go through. Fortunately, I did not have anything to challenge God about, right? Because I was very clear in my mind. Here I was, after having spent a lot of beautiful days of my life, in a particular situation, yes, but what did I have to complain about at the end of the day? What had I lost? And this is where the story of Job comes in and the lessons I learned from his life. But before that, let me read out a few of the things, I'm going to refer to the notes because I don't want to miss out on some of those key health issues I had, throughout my life, all right? So here goes. When I was 7, I was involved, when I was 7 years old, I was involved in a water-related accident where I could have died at the age of 7, right? Actually, my wife and children are going to be surprised because I've never told this to even them. It never struck me to say that. I just made a note of it before making this video, to think about that and be grateful, that nothing happened to me at that time, right? Again, when I was around 9 years old, again, I had a water-related accident and I almost lost my life. When I was 26 years old, I developed what is known as chronic spondylosis, right? And the doctor who eventually diagnosed and treated me, a real master in that niche, told me that at the age of 26, what he was seeing is much more severe than what he had seen in a 70-year-old man who had suffered with chronic spondylosis for 12 years. So my condition was that severe. And he says that if you had come to me 1 month late, you would have been paralyzed the entire left side, right? You would have been paralyzed, okay? So your treatment starts right this moment, all right? Now, when I was 34, I developed appendicitis and I had no clue what it is, right? I just had some pain, in the stomach area. And, I went about doing whatever I was doing. And to show myself, the doctors were literally shouting at me and saying, "Why did you come earlier?" I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "Well, if you're delayed, the appendicitis could have burst. That is the current status of your appendicitis, and that could have been fatal. That could have been fatal for you." Yeah. So look at that, the seriousness of the things that came into my life, right? When I was 42, I had my first heart attack. All right. Now, I shouldn't speak about this very loud because my family always gets very emotional about this. All right, so I hope they don't see this part of the video. What happens is a lot of people, tell me that, when I had my heart attack, I could travel to my home country 3 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and get myself operated there along with my, family and relatives and known doctors around. They're just lucky. In my case, there was a time lag by the time my, part insurance was approved. And around that time, when I asked my doctor, can I go for a short walk, like a 5-minute walk, because I'm getting so bored sitting in the bed? He said, "Joseph, if you can avoid it, don't even go to the washroom, because that was the level of my seriousness, okay? So that was my first heart attack at the age of 42. 46, I have my second heart attack, all right? And this time about, by the time I reached the hospital, I was literally a gone, case, so to say. It was really a rebirth, honestly. A case of death, so to say. Typically what happens is they revive you with morphine, okay? Now, typically they started with a 0.25 mg or 0.5 mg, and the maximum they go to is a 3 mg, all right, to revive somebody from their state of semi-consciousness or whatever, before they, start the other part of the treatment. Now, for me, 3 mg didn't work, 6 mg didn't work, 9 mg didn't work. And finally, they have to pump me up with up to 12 mg of morphine for me to be, brought back to a stable condition where they could take me for my angioplasty and so on, right? So that was another critical element, right? When I was around 50, 51, we just visited the doctor to check on my, the cataract on my eye, just to follow up on my cataract after it was operated. And they find out that there is a lesion, okay, basically a tear, a few tears, so to say, or holes in the retina wall, okay? And again, what does the doctor say? He says, if you had come 1 week later, you would have been blind in both your eyes, right? Both your eyes. Now, how horrible is that, yeah? Now, again, when I was 54, I developed something called as gastritic ulcer. Now, this might sound something not so serious, but I was surprised, by the amount of botheration it gave me because, I lost a lot of blood in that. And, of course, I was given the treatment and all, and it healed pretty quick. But because, first of all, when it happened, I fell down unconscious from a standing position backwards, all right? I'm a 6'1" man, okay? And falling backwards, completely unconscious, could again have been fatal even at that stage, right? And that happened at 11:30 at night when nobody was at home, yeah? So I don't know how long I was lying down unconscious. Anyway, finally I reached the hospital and they treated me. But what surprised me is that this took me the longest time in recuperating, because I'd lost so much of blood and the vital signs, so to say, was so low that it took me a lot of time to recover and come back to normalcy, all right? So, as you can see, I've gone through a lot of health challenges in life. And today I am speaking to you absolutely in good health, hale and hearty. I'm sure if I don't tell you that I've gone through all this, most of you would not guess that I've gone through all this. So what am I complaining about, right? I've been married to a wonderful, lovely, loving, caring, dedicated, devoted wife, Gracie. We have spent almost 30 years together. We have been blessed with 2 amazing children, the apples of our eye, who not only love me and my wife, but they respect us, they care for us, we're blessed with an amazing family. So what am I complaining about, right? So at this stage today, I would only be grateful to God for having given me the understanding, if not the enlightenment about this situation, for having put me through the fire to mold me and make me a better person, to understand that this was his test, in my life to make me realize the more important things in life, right? And again, when you look back at Job's life, like I said, he was the richest man of the East. He had 7,000 sheep. He had 3,000 camels. He had 500 oxen, 500 donkeys, and obviously huge lands and servants to look after all this, right? And on top of all that, he had 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls. And each of those 7 boys had their own palatial mansions, and all the 10 children gathered every single day of every week, in one of those houses, enjoying, making merry, having fun among themselves. And what happens when the trial time started? On a single day, Job loses everything. Yeah? Crashed out, totally gone, everything, including all the 10 children in one single day, right? Just imagine how devastating can that be, right? Now, trust me, this is no easy thing for anybody to bear. But what did Job do? He stands up, he tears off his clothing, he shaves his head, and then he falls down and worships God, saying, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. What an amazing lesson, my friend. This is exactly what today I have been taught to, learn in my life and to live with that. That's my personal story. What's your story, my friend? What's your story? Every single one of us goes through some problem or the other, some challenge or the other. But you know what? After a lot of thinking, I think there are only 6 problems, broadly classified, only 6 problems that any human can ever have, all right? Let me see if I remember those correctly, okay? One could be family, family-related problems, okay? Second is finances. Third is physical, your health-related things. Fourth is mental, all right? Mental, what more do we have? Society, is the 5th one. And so on. And the 6th one, of course, is spiritual, right? Spiritual, yeah? So these are the 6 problems. Now, I dare you to sit down and write down any kind of problem that you have or have had in the past, all right? And just see that it will fit into any one of these 6 categories, nothing more. Now, in my case, I talked about my problem that happened or is happening in the side of finances. Period. That is it. I'm so lucky, right? Now, some of you might have problems related to your finances as well, your family, spiritual issues, your health issues, whatever it is. But you know what? If you read the book of Job, and I urge you to read this multiple times, because that is when you will really be able to digest that and get the core meaning of that and be able to relate to that in your own life, all right? Job had all these problems thrown at him in a very, very, very short time. But he did not challenge God. He did not sin. He did not curse God. He did not say, why me, Lord? Right? He just said, the Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So let's, you and I, my friend, also appreciate all the goodness that we have received in our life and rejoice, in everything that the God has given us. That God will not take away everything from you, but He does have the right to take away because it's all His. And when He does, rejoice in it, and say, the Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. You take care.